Oh, this is it. This is peak blur happening right now. It's a addictive burst of acceleration. Getting as many pedal strokes as you can, because everyone just drives the bike forward. Just that injection of speed. And however long you've been riding, it's still got that crazy ability to suddenly amp up the velocity.
My name's Guy Kesteven. I've been a professional bike and kit tester for near on 25 years. And today, this is my final live ride review of the fabulous Santa Cruz Blur XC.
So, Santa Cruz Blur, there are actually two of them. Both sharing the same 993 gram carbon cc frame and linkage, but there's a TR version with a 120mm fork and a 190x45mm stroke shock and chunkier tyres, and then this, the XC version, 190x40mm stroke shock, so 100mm at the back, and a 1320 gram RockShox SID SL fork up front. So, complete bike weight for this large, 10.4 kilos, which makes it crazy responsive, and obviously a total gift when it comes to distance and speed. But it's not just the weight, it's the way this bike delivers that speed and its character while it's doing it. That is absolutely outstanding. Oh, thank you very much. Cheers. You know, it's a big deal for Santa Cruz to move away from VPP, but by losing that twin linkage system and just going with a flex stay, what they call super light suspension, that saves them 300 grams. And in this category, well, that's a lot of weight. SRAM X01 Axis reserve build, which means you're getting SRAM's wireless Axis gear set, which I've done a separate review on. I'll link that above. And the awesome reserve SL28 carbon wheels with 385 gram 28mm internal lifetime warranted rims, and that's pretty much a perfect match for this bike. So while I wouldn't normally recommend a carbon wheel for cost effectiveness, well, this is definitely a sweet spot package. It's actually only 130 grams heavier than the full XX1 bike. And I say that because while it looks like pretty much every flex, rear stay, top shock race bike that's been invented over the past 3-4 decades, there's something very distinctively signature Santa Cruz about this Blur that just makes you want to absolutely rally it, even in this short travel spec. And a lot of that, speaking to Kieran, who's the kind of project and suspension engineer on this, comes from the amount of stiffness Santa Cruz have managed to keep in this frame. So they work through a whole load of different iterations of flex points, seat stay configurations, where it bent, how much it sprung back. Kieran says they actually lost count of how many they trialled in their in-house carbon facility at Santa Cruz. The same place they make Danny McCaskill's trials frames. And they've used all that kind of tech from those, from the V10, all their other carbon projects, to create this distinctively kind of muscular, yet still mobile enough frame set. That combination of minimal weight and that muscular stiffness means when you press those carbon cranks. This thing is just an absolute rocket ship. But more than that, they've done a lot of work with the kinematic of the bike as well. The way the shock works. Again, they went through loads of different tunes and variants, but actually they came back to a pretty standard one. Because what they've done is, rather than using a lot of anti-squat to kind of pick the back end up and make it drive hard under power, they've actually used a really low leverage setup. And that means even on stop-start, twist and go single track like this, it keeps a really stable, planted feel. But once the stroke's moving, after quite a sharp start, because off the top in the car park, an under pedaling feel, but then as soon as it starts moving, you've got a really supple, mobile, kind of rock dodging, consistently traction holding mid stroke that just comes from that shock not being overworked, just being progressive enough to really make the most of what travel you've got. Oh, this feels really alive and agile, but when you see a bigger block and you're kind of stiffening to absorb it, it melts it incredibly well. So it actually feels remarkably light. The best bits of Santa Cruz's VPP suspension that they use on their trail bikes, but lighter and just perfect for this kind of rallying, woo, XC feel. That means when you're pedaling up a slabby section like this, that would normally really catch and pull you back against your pedals on a bike with a lot of anti-squat, this blur just carries on rolling up. All the traction you need, but very little pedal interruption. It makes gains really easily on that kind of stuff. And the great thing is, you don't even have to do anything to make it go fast. It just naturally balanced to just create speed out of every situation. That's how that suspension feels. The suspension just does exactly what you want it to do, exactly in the way you want it to do it, at exactly the right time. And the geometry is spot on as well to go with it, because actually they've not just gone down the slacker is better line. 68.3 head angle on this XC bike, so pretty tight still. 75.8 seat angle to get you forward for sections like this. But in terms of the steering, especially with that 32mm leg SID, it's right on the borderline of a bike that wants to tuck under and twitch rather than straighten itself out and stay stable. But that just kind of informs that super responsive feel. And because they have added a fair amount of reach out to 470mm, got a decent amount of time to react and bring it back. And the rest of the geometry is kind of classically balanced rather than radical in any way. You've got proportional length rear stays, giving decent mud clearance even around that 2.4 inch Aspen as standard. 330mm bottom bracket height, so not slammed but not too perched either. Plenty of space for pedaling, but without woo, but that's where this bike suddenly proves its colours, is when you're into a big janky steppy, random, rocky section like this, proper knife sharpener, and you just let it go, and it flows and carries you through. So good. I like 100mm of suspension. This 100mm of Fox Transfer SL dropper is just enough. But I'm kind of divided on the binary nature. I mean, I like it in terms of how it feels. It kind of matches the bike. You know, we got the on-off or the lockout if you want it, and it's either dropped for raving or high for pedaling. But it would be nice to kind of have a slightly drop position, like the old Fox DOS post, just for pedaling on sections like this where you like a little bit of extra mobility. But having that longer top tube just gives you that a little bit more time to react and get back on track when that front tyre loses the plot, which unsurprisingly is pretty regular. But while it's surprisingly capable and keen on hitting up the big stuff and handing down bigger bikes, if you're in the mood for silliness, particularly that back end, where this super light flat barred trail assassin really scores is on fast powered single track like this, especially if it's climbing slightly. Just the way it's constantly craving the next gear up, shimmying through each section, the way it gets that power down but keeps that rear tyre glued is incredible, especially considering that Ardent basically just an angry inner tube, barely any tread on it at all. But that mid-stroke, just so connected, always feels ready to put the power through, and yet never chokes, never pulls you back. Such an incredible balance they've got with the rear end of this bike. And then, like I say, that's matched with the main frame as well. Big square down tube, plenty of stiffness all the way through, and even little touches like torque caps on the front hub to maximise stiffness through the hub connection, and this little Synthase stem is an absolute beauty. Proper weight saver, hard rider, connoisseur's item is that. Whoever spec'd that seriously knows their business when it comes to lightweight rally bikes like this. I mean, the rest of the spec is really well informed too, really well chosen. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Axis, as you probably already know by now, so love the control you get through that. But in these big 2.4 tyres, they might not have any tread, but they're impressively so well. So far they've taken a whole summer of hammer in their stride, and you run them nice low pressure, they just add a little bit more adhesion. When that fork does start to flick and twang around, they've just got a little bit enough damping to them. And then, yes, it's a flat bar, but it's a 760mm flat bar, so there's a decent amount of leverage. And all those brakes that are screaming are only 160mm. Right, those are the level TLMs. That's probably as much as you want with these tyres actually. So anything more than that, you're just going to be sliding all over the place. And generally, pretty much every time I've not had enough braking power to stop as quickly as I wanted, the bike's gone, we didn't need to brake anyway. Look how well we're dealing with this. Just like that section there. And then you just get on the power and it's just got this addictive, woo, burst of acceleration. Getting as many pedal strokes as you can, because every one just drives the bike forward so quickly. Oh, this is it. This is peak blur happening right now. Just that injection of speed. And however long you've been riding, it's still got that. It's still got that crazy ability to suddenly amp up the velocity. Yeah, even when we did a long solstice ride that ended up with this absolutely sodden, this was still just blasting out of every corner. 7 hours, 100k in, it was still just wanting to play, pop, and just rip a new one out of everyone behind it. It's properly antisocial. That's the one warning I would give you. It just loves making a mess of people you're riding with. Every time I come out on it, it totally rearranges the kind of pecking order and performance rankings of the riders I'm with. Just totally force multiplies what skill and fitness I've got. And it makes an absolute mockery out of fitter, faster riders. I think Santa Cruz call it a fair advantage, but it really is ridiculously quick. And that is an intoxicating, yes, leg out, rail it. Such an intoxicating, exciting, almost dangerously so experience. Damn, this bike is fine. I ain't gonna miss it so much. Woo! Right, I'll try not to end up in a heap on this one. If you watch the Ribble video, you know how this can end. But without wanting to provoke it, this Santa Cruz is just, I mean, it properly dances on the edge of feeling super twitchy and super responsive rather than extra stable. But what that gives you, but then when it really matters, it sticks, it grips, and it takes the hits and just really lets you not just carry speed but generate it. Oh, oh, you're right. That was bound to happen, wasn't it? Yeah, like I say, that is the one thing you have got to be careful with. It does generate an unholy amount of speed down, up, or along, and you've got to be ready to try and tame that, because this bike is so alive. It is just addictively responsive. Like I say, even on rides where I've gone out feeling like death warmed up, this Blur, by the end of the ride, I'm the one who's come good. I'm the one who's suddenly got the legs, wants to do the extra climb and descent session. It's just crazy how much energy this bike brings to your riding. And that super low weight and that consistently excellent rear wheel connection with that pin sharp power feedback, plus that 75.8 seat angle for the ideal posture over these low handlebars, makes it an exceptional technical climber, as you'd expect. So getting up for another goon about is never a drama compared to a trail bike. It's just an absolute gift. I mean, if you've never ridden a 10 kilo bike before, it is sensational. The difference it makes is incredible. And one of the most common questions every time I post a picture or a video of this bike is how it compares to Specialized Epic Evo, which obviously it looks really similar to, and the Scott Spark. So let's cover that off. And basically, yeah, in a lot of ways it does ride similarly to the Specialized, as you'd expect, but it's a lot stiffer, and as good as the Specialized suspension is, this really is something special. The way this feels so taut under power, and yet somehow still feels super plush over square edges, and just that combination is just phenomenal to blowing speed out of this bike. And also, even though it's slacker, the Specialized, because this is stiffer, even with the short fork, I'd actually say feels more capable in chaotic situations. And while the Spark has more travel and it's stiffer and it's undoubtedly a brilliant bike, it's just a little bit more clipped and clinical and efficient than the Blur, which might be what you want, but it's just something wonderfully poppy and playful about this bike. And also, interestingly, in terms of value, I'd actually put the Santa Cruz between the Specialized and the Scott as well, because the Scott with this level of kit is actually really cost effective, but the Epic Evo, surprisingly expensive. There's actually something I see more and more with Santa Cruz. I mean, they're not getting any cheaper, but it seems like other brands are kind of catching up with them. And when you consider you've got that a lifetime warranty and things like, and use the serviceable bearings and that big piece of belly armour and big chainstay armour, even on this sub 2 kilo frame. And there's no weight limit on this bike either. It's a proper tough trail ready machine. And obviously, if you do decide you want more travel, all you got to do is stick the longer stroke shock in there. So there's a whole load of potential and versatility beyond just the sheer velocity of this bike, but it's that just super visceral, almost violently rapid acceleration and altitude gain that this bike always has in its back pocket that just makes it such a brilliant ride if you like properly popping and playing up, down and around trails, or if you just want to race the Santa Cruz, because it's the first time in a long time they've had a properly XC capable bike, and they're regularly in the top 10 of World Cups now, and they've also set a load of fastest known times on this bike almost as soon as it came out.
So there you go. That is the beautiful, brilliant, blisteringly quick and just addictively rapid Santa Cruz Blur XC, which I've loved having this summer. It really has been an exceptional bike to play on for epics, just chasing through the woods. Also, I've just loved having it. The only thing that's going to stop me heartbreaking sending this back is that Santa Cruz send me the trail version to try, because looking at the specs and the angles, they've used that extra pound of bike really wisely to add a ton of capability. But to be honest, I love this in the kind of freakishly fast and occasionally just a little too leery XC spec, as you'll have seen tonight. But damn, the weight and the responsiveness of this bike is next level. But anyway, I'm rambling on. You should have got all that from the live ride review, and if not, I'm going to do a tech talk round as well when the light's a bit better, so we'll go up close and personal on all the details and go through some of the details I might have missed on the live ride. But for now, massive thanks to Santa Cruz for the extended loan of this bike. Thanks to Giro Cycling UK for supporting the channel. Thanks to Petey's. Thanks to Crud as well. Huge thanks to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Small pledge gets you exclusive access to early and extended and ad-free edits. So if you really like what I'm doing with the channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, click for notifications, give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I'm going to be doing the Chameleon, the new hardtail bike, shortly as well. And I've pretty much racked up every other Santa Cruz in the range already. And there's been a ton of footage on the Santa Cruz Stigmata, which I've been running the SRAM Explore kit on. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan, saying a very fond farewell to the Santa Cruz Blur XC X01 Axis Reserve Spec.
Oh, and the other thing, because this is so effortless to ride, it just extends your range and your appetite to get out on the trail so much. This is same night as I shot the daytime footage. Went back to the Bartat, had a pork pie in there, indigo alcohol fry, and I'm out for another couple of hours with the TNFC boys, and it's still punching, still racing. I'm actually getting genuinely emotional. Now I've realised this is actually the last ride I'm going to have on this bike. It's just been so good, and kind of doing the double on it just sums up a fantastic summer of further, faster and more fun.